Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll start this Kiddushin daf Yud Zayin. We're going to begin on Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, about 12 lines from the top by the two dots. We were learning with regard to an Eved Ivri, under certain circumstances, he, upon becoming freed, is required to receive by the Adon, the master must give him Hanukah, some type of gift. So this is what the Gemara is going to continue with. Tanabun, Kama Manikinoi, how much exactly do we give this guy? So Chamish Sloim Mikol Min Umin, you're supposed to give 15 Selah from every of the minim. Rashi explains Mitzaincha Umigarncha Umigvecha, that the pasuk says you're supposed to give from your sheep and your silos and from your wine presses. Shaveh Slaim, each you're supposed to give 5, and therefore Mikol Echad Shehin Tesvav Slaim, which obviously we can count 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 15. We'll have to understand why, but again he says Chamish Slaim Mikol Min Umin Shehin Chamish Esther Slaim Dibra Meir. So you have to give 5 of each, which is 15. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shloishim, you actually have to give 30. Kishloishim Shel Eved, just like in Eved. Rashi says Nezek Shor Muid Shaharig Es Ha'eved. If you have an ox that killed an Eved, so the din is there's a knas of 30 kesef that must be given. So too there's 30. So we learn here also you have to give out 30. Exactly what is the connection? We'll have to see. Rav Shimon Omer Chamishim Kachamishim Shebe'erchen. So actually you have to give 50, as Rashi says the greatest amount to give, the Erech Gadol, when it comes to Erechen, is 50. So therefore we require 50. So Omar, so let's understand this machlokas. Chamish Slaim Mikol Min Min Shehim Chamish Esrei Slaim Dura Meir. So Rameir Min Yado Slash Minan, he's helping us count to 15. Hakamashmon Mitzerhu Loy Mitzerle Mahai Minyana, that you should not do any less than this amount. The Ibatzerle Mechad Mina, if let's say you give, let's say 5, and instead of 5 you give 4, but Tvele Mechad Mina, and you give more in the other, Leislanba, that is not an issue. So he says really supposed to give 5, 5, and 5. However, just as long as when you add it all up, it equals 15. So my time to Rameir, why? So Yolef Reikam Mibachar. He actually will learn out from Reikam, which is from Bechor, from Pidyon Haben. The pasuk says, the Rashi quotes, B'chol Bechor Banecha Tiftet, that you're supposed to redeem your firstborn child. Malchol Chamish Slaim is with 5, Avkan Chamish Slaim. So look at Rashi, L'hachi Tanishin Chamish Esla Shminan Dul Kapid El Eminyan Tesvav Slaim. The main thing is that as long as you give them 15 Selah, Abba Chamish Mikol Min Lul Kapid. You don't have to necessarily give 5 each exact. The Ibatzer Le Mahai V'Tvele Mahai, Leislam not a problem. Okay, so that's what he's coming to teach us. But again, he learns out 5, just like Pidyon Haben, so too over here, you have to give 5. So where it says, well, if it's 5, so Ve'em Chamish Slaim Mekuhu, why 15? Maybe you just have to give 5 in total. Why 15 in total? If the pasuk ended up saying Reikam at the end of Lo Tishachena Reikam, so, or V'lo Yurapanai Reikam, then I would understand what you're saying. Says Rashi, Hanik Tanik Lo, Mesanacha Mikarnacha Mikvecha, V'lo Tishachena Reikam. But Hashnik said Reikam Bereisha, actually it says Reisha first. Koidim Hanik Tanik Shadei Reikam, you're supposed to put the word Reikam before that. So Shadi Reikam, Atzen Reikam, a Gairin Reikam, a Yekiv. So it's saying that you should not be giving empty-handed on this, or this. And therefore, empty means 5. Just like you cannot be empty-handed to the Kohen with regard to Pidyon Haben, you can't be empty here with regard to any of those 3 things. And therefore, you have to give 5 each, or a total of 15. So, V'neil Reikam Olis Ru'iyah. Want to learn out from Olis Ru'iyah, says Rashi, Deleisa El Shtei Kesef. As the Gemara Chagiga says, it's actually Machlokas Misham is Hillel, but he holds that you only have to bring something which is equivalent to 2 kesef. So Amar Kram, Asher Baruch Hashem Elokecha. which means, since it says Hanitaniku, so Lamancha, says Rashi, Shetidra Shemikro Rabbi Sulamayit. It's obviously coming to be more expansive and inclusive and not excluded. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer Shloishim Shloishim Shel Eved. He says, just like when an Eved is killed by a shore, and you have to give 30, so to your 30. So my time, Rabbi Yehuda, Yom Nesin Nesinah Eved, Malahon Shloishim Avkan Shloishim. Again, he learns out Nesin Nesina. It's written over here, T10 Loi. And over there it says, regarding to the Nezek of an Eved, Kesev Shloishim Shekom Yitin La Dainav. So the name of Nesin Nesina Me'erach, and Malahon Chamishim Avkan Chamishim. Why do you stop at 30? Maybe you should have to give 50. So, Chada, first of all, the famous expression which is found in many places, including Masechet Sukkah numerous times there, that tefasta merubah, tefasta miyut tefasta. If it's true, you could do 30 or 50. So if we're not sure, we always lean toward the bottom. We grab onto the smaller amount. Less is more. But furthermore, Eved me'Eved have lamelach. Why should we not from Erchin? Let's compare an Eved to an Eved. Just like the killing of an Eved is 30, so too the freeing of an Eved is 30. So Rabbi Shimon Omer Chamishim Chachamishim Shiba Erchin. We said the most for Erchin. This why? So my time Rabbi Shimon Gomer Nesin Nesinah Erchin. He learns out his own Gzer Shava Malo Holo Chamishim Avkan Chamishim, that it's 50. Ve'ema B'Pochel Shiba Erchin. Why is it the most? Maybe it should be the least. So Asher Baruch Hashem Al Kechachsib, which again, when we could say give more, give less, you want to give more. V'Neil of Nesin Nesinah Me'Eved. Malhon Shloshim Avkan Shloshim, Chad Tavas Merubah Tafasta, Vod Eved Havila Melef. It seems more logical to Svara between 30 and 50. You should give 30 because we'll apply the principle of Tafasta Merubah Tafasta, and also doesn't it make more sense to compare it to an Eved? Because we're talking about an Eved going free. Why would we learn out from Erchin? What does that have to do with an Eved? So Shimon Micha Gomar, he learns out a Gzer Shava, and Rashi says a very important chiddush over here. He says, "Ein adam don Gzer Shava atzmo." You don't just make up a Gzer Shava. Umasurahi lahem miraboisehem umasinai is a teva nichtav Gzer Shava kechol davar halamin mechaveroi. So when it comes to Gzer Shava, it's something which Jesus make up. And therefore, this is the reason. So you can't ask these kashas, it should be 30. No, he has a Gzer Shava, which tells him it's supposed to be 30. Now, Bishlam Rameir had a saying, Garin V'Yekev. It makes sense why it mentions these three things, to tell you that each one is 5, which equals 15. So there's a reason why these are mentioned. El Rabbi Yehuda Rav Shimon, who just says, based on Gzer Shava, the 30 or 50, so I had saying Garin V'Yekev Lumli. What's the whole point of it? So how many boy are going to sign you? You still need it because of the following. Maybe you would think only those particular things. That you can give to a gift of any sort. Any way in which he'll be blessed. So how does that answer the question? That seems to be more problematic. They hold that you don't even need to have these words. So, no, it is necessary to tell you, matzayin, garin v'yekev, the common thread of sheep, silos, and the granary, and the wine press, miyuchadim sheishn b'chlal bracha. All of these things are b'chlal bracha, says Rashi, sayin parvarava, because animals produce, and so to v'geduli karka, things that grow, you can have a bumper crop. So I've kol shishin b'chal bracha, anything that falls under the category of being blessed and increasing, yotzu ksafim, which means you cannot give money. Div Reb Shimon. Rabbi Lezer min Yaakov omer yotzu paradais. It excludes mules because of their inability to reproduce. Reb Shimon paradais mashbachan begufayhu. According to Reb Shimon, no. He holds that it's only excluding money, but not mules, because even if they can't reproduce, but they could also grow and get bigger themselves and be more valuable. Rabbi Lezer and Yaakov ksafim avid behu iska. You can do business with it, and therefore with that money you can do business and you could be successful and find bracha there. Utzricha. The truth is we need all three. It only mentions sheep, havamina, bali chaimin, geduli karka, lo. maybe you can only gift the Eved Ivri with things that are animals, not crops, not things that grow from the ground. Because of Gairin, you would think the opposite. If it doesn't mention animals, you think you can only give land, but not animals. So you need to have both. So sign. Now, before we finish this Amud, there's an interesting dilemma over here, a contradiction. There's a concept called tafas merubah tafasta, that you want to make sure between a higher or smaller amount to give the smaller amount. It says Taisus tema kivandich asher bracha havilu lamelav min hameruba. It's hard to understand in Ayin Taisus that tavas merubah lo tafasta shouldn't apply over here, because you have the pasuk asher bracha shemakecha, which is telling that you should do a lot, you should do more. In a case of more or less, you should do more. So Ayin Taisus. So we understand why it has to say tzayin, why it has to say, it also needs to say gairin. So now yekev lamli. What are we adding by saying yekev about grapes and wine as we continue in Sam Beis? So lama mutik safim, lama mutik pradais. So again, it's coming to exclude something. It's coming to exclude either mules or kesef. Okay, question 3. Two answers, hilchasa loy sirichusa. Two hilchasa v'lo sirichusa. Let's see what he says. So Rameir shading zer shava koil chad minayu dehavil hu tesvav. It's supposed to be 15. 555, and the other ones will say man umiyuchadim shishim v'chol bracha. So afukik safim or pradais v'chol chad kid islay. Okay, all right. Vaita. Tanubah. The pasuk says again, Asher bracha shemalkech yochol nisbarich bayis beglola manikinoi lo nisbarich bayis beglola in manikinoi. So it says maybe it's only if this Eved Ivri actually brought bracha into this house, then you give him gift. Otherwise, no. No. The fact that it repeats it and says haniktanik means even in a situation where perhaps you did not see bracha in your house, nonetheless you still have to give gifts to the Eved Ivri. So you should give all according to your blessing. So you can give more depending on the blessing that you received. No, you actually have to follow the way it's written. Nisbarich bayis beglolo manikinloi, lo nisbarich bayis beglolo ein manikinloi. No, if there's no blessing in your house, you don't have to give any gifts. So why is it repeated? As we often hear, question 4. Am I kofel kro lishna hanik? Either it's just dibur kolishna from the Adam, or it's even in the situation of lonis bar chabayis begloloi, you still have to give. Okay, Tanubah. 2 dots. Eved Ivri oivid esabain ve'in oivid esabas. Okay, so the din is, an Eved Ivri will have to work for the son. What does that mean? Says Rashi, im meis adoinav. So he had a master, and that master died. So says Rashi, oivid es benoi ad moloi sheish o ad hayovel hapoig b'soichem. So he still has to complete the 6 years, and he has to work for this guy's son. However, let's say he doesn't have a son and only has a daughter. So the Gemara says that in oivid es abas, that if, let's say the adain, the master, dies and he has no son, the daughter does not acquire him, and he doesn't have to work for him. When it comes to an Amahavriya, we say that once her master dies, that's it. As we saw before, Misa Sa'adain, she's going to go free. Hadnirtza, when it comes to a man who decides to stay and becomes a Nirtza, as well as someone who sold himself to an Avikacham, which is a big no-no, we say also in that situation does not serve his father or his son or daughter. So therefore, the only time if the master dies that he will continue to work for someone is he will work for the son in a normal case of an Eved Ivri, but not by an Amavriya, and not by someone who sells himself to an Avikachavim, and not someone who is a Nirtza. Omer Mar. So now we're going to analyze it a little bit more. Eved Ivri, so how do we know that we should make this distinction that an Eved Ivri, when his master dies, he should still work for his that man's son. The Tanabanim. The pasuk says that you should work for 6 years. L'cha v'lo yarish. You should work for you and not for yarish. Says Rashi, shor yarishim k'koyin bas o ach. It means anyone other than the son. You're not going to be working for his daughter. You're not going to be working for this deceased man's brother. So maybe it means anyone, even the son. That if the man dies, that you don't have to work for even the son. How do we know you have to work for the son? No, because it says you have to work for 6 years. It means that even in the situation where the man dies, you have to work for his son. That you work for 6 years, only for him is v'lo yarish. So how do we know that we're going to be saying you have to work for the son? Maybe you should work for the daughter, or the brothers. So Rabbi says, why would you include the son and exclude the brothers? So because there is a din yud in which the master has the ability to marry this eved, this woman, and also for a stechuza for the inheritance. So the din is, says Rashi, shemayed amahavriya bekesa miknasa. So when it comes to yud, which means the master could literally marry the amavriya, that's also a right that the son has. Also, it comes to stechuza, says Rashi, hamaktish stechuzasai, where a person who sanctifies a field of inheritance, poide base kur zer chaymer sorim b'chamishim shekel kesef. There's a specific amount that you need to redeem based on the square footage. Vimul padu, and let's say you didn't redeem your field in accordance to this amount. Umachor gizbor l'achar, and this is sold by the treasurer to someone else, says Rashi, ein yachol oid liftoisa. The owner can no longer redeem it. Ukashiyotzim yadolikeach b'yovel, and when yovel comes, mischalekas kohanim, it doesn't go back to the original owner, but rather because you're a makdash stechuz and you didn't redeem it, and the din is, and the gizbar sells it to someone else, it goes back to the kohanim. Let's say the son purchased it, it does not go to the kohanim. As the pasuk says, let's say the gizbar sells it to some stranger, not to the son. Okay, which is basically the same idea, but the din is that again, if a person makdish stechuza, so if someone else redeems it, goes to the kohanim. However, if the son redeems it and he's the one who buys it, so then in that situation it does not go to the kohanim at yovel. So we see the chiluk when it comes to a son as well as the owner of the field, they both have that ability when it comes to a stechuza. So we see that it makes more sense that also here that the son should be able to have this eved ivri, that he should still work for the son. Adarabba. So he says, well, 1 second, there's the din yibum. Yibum is only that she has a right to marry the brother. So the brother's very strong. He's very close to his own sibling, not the son. So maybe we should say that this Eved Ivri should Taka have to work for the brother. Gemara says a beautiful smar here. Klum yesh yibum el b'makam she'en ben, hayesh ben en yibum. We're talking about, yibum is so strong because it goes to the brother. She marries the brother, there's a secret to the brother. That's only if there's no kid. But if they have kids, specifically kids, but let's say a son, so there's no yibum. So the only reason why yibum, the brother, is strong is without a son in place. But if there is a son, there's no yibum. So the yibum itself is not strong. Verse says 1 second. So we're basically knocking yibum out. So it's really not a 2 against 1, but it's like 2 against 0. You have yud and stechuza against this one svara. The truth is, we could have just left it and it would be 2 against 1. Says the Gemara, The only reason why we say that you have to work for the Eved Ivri has to work for the son is because of this pircha, shooting out Yibum. It sounds like with the brother would be better, but typically the Hakatad. Even if it's true that Yibum favors the brother, but you still have two other things. You have Yid and Steachuza. Remember, it's a Steachuza Nami Mahai Pirchahu to Konafik Latana Kum Yesh Yibum Elba Makam Shein Ben. So we use this svara by Steachuza as well, as we already saw in Rashi. So therefore, Steachuza in itself wouldn't be so strong. Therefore, it would really only be 1 against 1. That's why we had to knock Yibum completely out. Okay. Let's just see if there's any questions yet. Okay. Yeah. Question TB15. Be'elo devar matzinu shekam haben v'lo kol yorish tachas aviv. Where do we find that the son has kayach over everyone, even the brothers? This is TB15. Great question. So there's 3 answers. One answer is Yud, one is Steachuza, and we're also saying the third is that when it comes to an Eved Ivri, Ovid es haben, then Ovid es habas. So those are the 3 distinctions between the son and the brother. Let's just see how he writes it. Yud she'Eved Ivri Ovid es haben Steachuza. Okay, good. Weiter. So let's continue now by the 2 dots. So we said an Eved Ivri whose master dies, he still has to work for the son. However, an Amavriya, when her master dies, she doesn't have to work, she goes free. Now, Minhan, why do we make this distinction by Amavriya? So Amar Rabbi Padah, do you ever call the Pasuk says that you should also do this to the maidservant. Now, Hakisha Kasav Nirtza. So we're comparing the Amavriya to a Nirtza. Nirtza, we said, we don't know why, but we already established that a Nirtza whose master dies, he doesn't work for the son or the daughter. So too, just like by Nirtza, that's the din, so too when it comes to Amavriya. So is that what this pasuk is going to tell you, that the din is also for Amavriya in this way? We need it for something else. To say that not only are you supposed to give gifts to an Eved Ivri, you're supposed to give gifts to an Amavriya when she leaves. So how do we know it's referring to giving gifts? Maybe it's by an Amavriya that she could actually become a nirtza, which we said she can't. So haritzia amar. We already know from the diak that if the Eved comes and says, I love my wife, I love my master, I want to stay, but it says ha'eved. So the fact that it says that, it's a miyut saying that only an Eved Ivri could become a nirtza, but not an amavriya. So therefore we know already that she cannot be a nirtza. So hare ritzia omor. It could only be talking about hanaka. So therefore the kasha is actually strong. How could you tell me that is coming to tell you that the din is that when her master dies, when Amavriya's master dies, that she doesn't work for the father, for the ben or the bas, because just like Nirtza, maybe we learn it out to tell you that she's supposed to get gifts. So we tackle about 2 things regarding the Amavriya, that she is just like someone else. She's like a Nirtza. First of all, she is like a nirtza that she will not work for the son or daughter, and also she's like an Eved Ivri in which you must give her gifts. Also, we already said a nirtza, as well as someone who sells himself to a non-Jew, when his master, let's say the dies, he doesn't work for their kids. Nirtza, that says that the master brings him with an awl to his ear, and he works for him, which is you only work for him but not his kids. So that's the drasha. How do we know if you sell yourself to an Ovi Chachamim, then the master dies, you don't work for his kids? It says you should calculate it together with this assessment. Not the inheritors of those who acquired you. So it says you should only make the calculation based on the person who you were sold to the Ovi Chachamim. Which is mashma, if he died, then not. The truth is, technically speaking, an Ovi Chachamim, a non-Jew, can inherit halachically his father's estate. Shnemar v'chishav im konehu, v'lo im yorshi konehu. Now, why does it have to tell us this? That when it comes to an Eved Ivri who sells himself to an Ovi Chachamim, that when that master dies, that their son doesn't inherit them. It's Machlal Disle Yarshim. There is a din Yerusha. It's just specifically for whatever reason when it comes to an Eved Ivri, Hanimchal Ovi Chachamim, that the pasuk says no, you're not going to be Yarish. The children will not get this Eved Ivri. Once the master dies, he leaves, and that's it. But why does it have to say that? If there's no din Yerusha for a son to a son to a father to a son, so then you don't need to tell us. There's no chiddush. It must be that really there normally is, and that's how we see that it's needed. It says Rashi, the fact that you needed to exclude the Eved Ivri, that must show something. Okay, ger es ha'ovid kachavim. Let's say you have a child who is a convert. He's a yid, and his parents are ovid kachavim. His parents are not Jewish. So the din is that this child who's a yid, min ha-Torah, really is not going to be yarish from his parents who are Ovi Chachamim. Only min rabbanan, none. Ger ba'Ovi Chachamim shiyarshu asavihem oived Chachamim. So if you have a ger ba'Ovi Chachamim shiyarshu asavihem Ovi Chachamim, they inherit it from their parents. Ger yachol loimer Ovi Chachamim. So the ger could say to the Ovi Chachamim, which is basically his brother, which technically, right, by birth. So you can tell his brother who's not Jewish, who doesn't adhere to the mitzvos, you take the idol worship. I'll take the money, because I don't worship idols. You take the yain nesach, and I'll take the fruits. Because again, this way I won't lose out. Mishubahu Rishus Ger Aser. However, once it actually enters into the Rishus of the Ger, at that point, no, he's not allowed to make this deal, because it's kind of like he owned it, and therefore he benefits from it, etc. Now, it's hard to understand. Even if he didn't actually have it in his rishus, the reality is he has no right to be able to make such a deal. He's actually benefiting some sort with avodah zarah. So minur banan, so el minur banan, zerahu the oven rabbanan shemayasel asudai. The truth is, probably we wouldn't want him necessarily to do such a thing. However, if we tell him, by the way, congratulations, you're Jewish, but the reality is now that you're Jewish, you're not going to inherit a single thing from your parents who are the Chachamim. So they're probably going to say, oh really? I guess I better throw away all my Jewish beliefs, and I'm going to pursue what I was before, which was Ovi Chachamim. So the Rabbanan, being sensitive to that possibility, they said, okay, you know what? You can collect. You can get Yerusha. Okay, so that's the sensitivity again that the Chachamim have. Tanya mihachi b'medivar morim kishi yarshu. That's only when it comes to the din of Yerusha that we're so lenient. Avol kishinish tatfu aser. However, if let's say you're partners, you can't make such a deal. Fine. Now, how about the other way around? Ovi Chachamim esager. Let's say the child is Ovi Chachamim, and the father is a Yid. V'ger seger, we have a father and a son, they're both converts. The din is, it doesn't make any difference, min Torah or min Rabbanan, we will not have them officially have any Yerusha. Did not. If you borrow money from a convert, which is Gairu, bon of Imo, and his children convert with him, lo yasul. Don't give it back to his kids. Says Rashi, Imei Sa'av. if the father died, since he's a ger, so now that the father died, you don't have to give that money back to the kids, because those kids don't really have there's no din Yerusha. Even though they're both converts, we don't say that they're halakhically they are biologically father and son, but they're not halakhically father and son. The Hikser, and if in fact you do give that money back, in ruach chachamim noichemenu, they're not going to be too pleased. So v'asanya ruach chachamim noichemenu. We've seen elsewhere that taka is a good thing to give it back. Ukasha kan shehoy rasai v'leidasai shalom b'kedusha. One is in a situation where even the conception was shalom b'kedusha. In other words, this person was not Jewish all the way when he was conceived, as well as after he was born, he was not Jewish at the time. As we continue, the Chesed Aleph, v'kan shehoyrasa shalom b'kedusha v'leidaso b'kedusha. So since he was born a Jew, right? So what happened was, this child, he in conception he was not Jewish, but then he ended up becoming Jewish. Let's say his mother converted while he was in utero, right? So since he was born a Jew, it could be confusing, and people would think he was always Jewish. So we're going to give it to him, and the Chachamim are happy with that. So Ruach Chachamim Noichemenu is in a situation of Harasa Shalom Kedusha V'leidas Kedusha, because people aren't going to understand the difference. They're going to think that actually Hitaka was always Jewish, right? Even before conception, the parents were Jewish before the mother had conceived him. So therefore, in that situation, even though technically you don't have to give it back, but nonetheless, if you do, we say that Ruach Chachamim Noichemenu. However, in a situation where he was born not Jewish, in that situation, there's no need to have to give it back. Okay. Rav Chia bar Avin, Rabbi Yochanan, Avi Chachamim, Yerush Aviv Devar Torah. And Avi Chachamim is Yerush his father Devar Torah, which is where he gave one answer from learning out from the Eved Ivri, but we're going to continue and see the Chsiv, Ki Yerushal Esav Nasati is Har Seir. It says that there was a Yerusha to Esav, he was given Har Seir. Now, he's certainly considered like an Avi Chachamim. But Dilma Yisrael Mumar Shiny. Actually, maybe he's not. Maybe we'll actually call him a Mumar Yisrael. Elo Mahacha. Ki Livnei Lo Nasatias Ar Yerusha. Because when it comes to the children of Lot, it was given to them or as a Yerusha. It says explicitly that they were given a Yerusha. Rav Chia bar Rabbi in my time Aimer Karava. Why doesn't he say the Pshat like Rava, right? Which we said before. Rashi says Yachshav im Kanehu. We learned out from the Diak that if the master dies, if the Oiv Kachavim dies, who is the master, his children are not Yorish the Eved Ivri. The Eved Ivri goes free. Mashma that otherwise they are Yorish. Why is he learn from there? So it makes the Chishav im Kanehu, the Lo im Yorishi Kanehu. It doesn't say it that way. And therefore they don't feel it's a clean diak. So Barava my time will Aimer Karav Chia Baravan. Why doesn't he say like this pasuk of Kivnei Livnei Lo Nasati Esar Yerusha? We see there's the din Yerusha Min Torah for Avi Chachamim. So Mishum Kavod Avraham Shani. Maybe the only reason why he was able to get a Yerusha is not in a normal circumstances, because Lot was directly connected to Avraham. And the schus of Avraham, maybe that was the reason why he was able to be Yorish. However, Stam Avi Chachamim may not necessarily be Yorish. Okay, we're going to stop there. No questions here. TA 14. Yes. Ha'im ger Yorish es aviv akum umadua. Okay. So the question is, does a ger, who's a Jewish guy, who converted, inherit his father's items, who is an akum? And the answer is minator, he's not, because to katan shenoiladami. However, midarabanan, we say that he is Yorish Shemiyasel Asuro, because we don't want him to end up throwing away his Jewish beliefs. Adkan.